I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Krysta, and I'm the daughter.
And together we are Family Plot. That was so nice. It's like for a moment, we're all almost superheroes.
Sure, you can go with that answer.
I like it. So how are you both?
I am okay. I'm going to school here soon, so
Yeah, but it's a new school, so it's all full of angsty weirdness right now.
Angsty teenagers.
No, it's an exciting adventure.
Of angsty teenagers.
Only if you let it be.
Yeah, well.
I don't think she really gets a choice. I think angsty teenager is like default.
You know, I think it's all in how you look at it.
Well, welcome back to our regular listeners. Welcome to any new listeners. My name's Dean, as I said. It's Laura over there and Krysta, my lady and my daughter. And together we are Family Plot, as I said. We're happy to have you if you're a new listener. And if you enjoy the show, please share it on social media with your friends. If you don't enjoy the show, what we ask is that you just keep that to yourself.
Keep your mouth shut.
Exactly. If you are a regular listener, welcome back. Always happy to see our regulars. Just remember, if you want to support the show financially, you can do that through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Patreon is a monthly donation. Buy Me a Coffee is a regular donation, and you get some cool stuff if you go through Patreon. But we're not worried about that right now. Today, we're going to get into something kind of interesting, something I wanted to talk about for a minute. When Eastern State Penitentiary opened more than 180 years ago, it changed the world. It's known for its grand architecture and strict discipline at the time. This was the world's first true penitentiary, a prison designed to inspire penitence or true regret in the hearts of its prisoners. The building itself was an architectural wonder. It had running water and central heat before the White House and attracted visitors from around the globe. Tonight, we investigate the Eastern State Penitentiary. But first, Krysta has some weird facts.
Hello, welcome back to the Weird Facts Corner, where we tell you weird facts. We being me, because I am multiple people at this point. I don't even know anymore.
I assumed it was the royal we, like, we are not amused, like the Queen in England does.
That makes sense.
Sounds about right. But before I go on with my facts, I would like to say something about this episode. I feel like a lot of people who believe in ghosts, a lot of people who didn't believe in ghosts once, they find this kind of stuff from places that are haunted. And they've had some of them actually have experiences, and they're just like, oh shoot, I should start believing in this. And if you don't believe in ghosts, that's cool, but at least see eye to eye with another person, and don't go flocking all over their farm, You don't steal their crops like the crows in Stardew Valley. That's not cool.
But I agree. I will say this, though. For our listeners, I converted to Judaism a few years back. And one thing I've noticed about that is Jews don't question the existence of God for the most part. It's like, if you tell a Jew you don't believe in God, they're sort of like, yeah, but he believes in you, so what are you going to do? Like, they don't take it personally, but they're just like, it's just not a question for them. And I guess that's the way I feel about spirits at this point is, you don't believe in ghosts, that's fine, but they believe in you.
They will totally frick with your head and drop some stuff. You know, like Toast did.
Toast threw stuff, actually, not just dropped it.
Right.
He was just like, okay, I'm not going to...
Well, and he threw stuff at Demix, which...
Well, I mean, sometimes I want to throw stuff at Demix, and I make it...
If I was a ghost, I'd be throwing stuff at Demix. Just like, here, have a birthday cake in your face.
I mean, I don't, because I'm not that kind of mom, but I'm just, you know... There are
I'm not trying to be mean to my brother. I'm sorry.
The other mothers out there can feel for me, I feel like, but
honestly, I just felt like I had to say that before I started.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
I was just giving my first outlook on what I thought of this episode, which I'll probably start doing more often. But I'll actually probably try to write stuff down instead of going last minute and trying to speak from whatever part of my tiny pebble-sized brain.
hey, no, don't be picking on your brain. You have an awesome brain, kiddo.
Don't go picking on my Krysta.
That's right.
There's this one pebble-sized part of my brain that is just like, I have to come up with words. And all it does is words.
Krysta, the only thing that you need, honestly, is a little more self-confidence. A little more belief in Krysta, and you would do amazing things. Which is weird, because your mom and I both believe in you. Like, we have a ton of faith in our Krysta.
I don't know how I don't have that much confidence. Don't ask me.
It's hard to have confidence as a young woman in today's world. You hear so many conflicting messages and things you're supposed to be, and that's why I try not to saddle you with a bunch of ridiculous expectations. Just one, that you won't date until you're 37.
Yeah, that's not happening. Sorry, Dad.
A little late for that.
Good thing I'm not dating anyone right now. It's okay. Okay, anyway, I gotta get to these facts before my phone starts dying. Well, no, because my phone is actually on a pretty good percent right now. It's on 81.
Wow.
It's on 81.
Wow, Dad, she charged up before the episode. Wow.
See? Told you she's smart.
Okay, so today's facts are from blog.njm.com. Thank you, Mom, for finding these facts for me. I needed some facts. She hooked me up. She was just like, I got you here.
Thank you, Google, for finding the facts for me.
This is just going to be a whole loop, and then Google's going to thank whoever wrote the...
Well, if you haven't seen...
Thank you for, NFM blog for writing the facts to begin with?
NJM.
NJM blog.
Well, and it's not just that, though. I mean, if you read the news, there is some argument as to whether or not Google's Lambda, its language processor, which is an early AI, may have achieved sentience.
Yes, I've heard some conversation about that, too. Do you mind? You're recording.
What did he do?
Smacked me in the head with his tail.
Rude.
Really?
Again? For the second time?
So let me just, I apologize for interrupting the facts, but I feel like I gotta throw this out here. So I might be having a little tit for tat with Dean's feline, because this morning, this spoiled child fur baby did not want his daddy to put his meds together. And so he literally climbed into the reusable bag that Dean keeps his medication bottles in order to remain the center of Daddy's attention. And Mommy made him move because I thought that was ridiculous. And so now this cat is over here behind me in the chair that I sit in when we record and smacking me in the back of my head while I'm trying to talk with his tail.
He's mad at you.
And I was complaining about it, and he did it again.
He just did it again?
Yeah.
Oh my god. He's just like,
3 times now. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's over here hiding his face. Anyway, honey, go ahead.
he's just like, you talking poop about me? Huh?
Take it away, Krysta.
Okay, hello. I am now here and kind of alive. How I feel obliged to ask everyone how they are doing today, even though we have already asked this question.
Doing great.
How has your week been?
My week is amazing. I like my job.
So far, so good. You guys are mostly enrolled in school, and while it's not the school I want you in, it's
Have been productive and such.
things happen for a reason, as your mom likes to say.
Everything happens for a reason.
You know, that's what I said earlier this morning.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I was like, this is probably happening for a reason. Did he do it again?
Oh, he keeps doing it.
He's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Every time she turns to look at somebody other than him, he does it.
Like,
Am I going to have to remove you?
he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
He's like, this is my chair. I sit here all the time.
He is mad. Okay. So, today's facts are about Pennsylvania.
Facts are about Pennsylvania. Go ahead. This is going to be an ongoing thing, I have a feeling.
Watch him smack you upside the head with his paw at the end of the podcast. That'd be so sad. Okay. So,
And now he won't even look at you.
like, he ain't looking at you.
He's looking at the ground. He's looking at the
That's
dog.
probably good for him.
He's looking everywhere else but you. Okay. So, fact number 1. I know I'm holding up 5 fingers. Don't ask me. I am not okay with I'm not okay with logical questions right now.
Okay.
Works for me.
Cool.
I'm having a battle of wills with a cat, so go ahead.
No, you're having a fur battle. The battle of hairballs. Okay. Number 1, the first baseball stadium was built in Pittsburgh in 1909.
Interesting.
Number 2, the chocolate capital of the U.S. is Hershey's Paw.
Hershey's, Pennsylvania. That's a place I would love to go to.
I want to eat all their chocolate.
Well, weirdly, they sell Hershey's chocolate, so you can, but
Too much money. That would be a lot of money.
But
No, I mean, Hershey's chocolate is just Hershey's chocolate.
But eating all of their chocolate would mean you have to pay for it. Yeah, I never loved them.
Well, you wouldn't want to eat all of their chocolate. Sometimes it's a lot to just eat a candy bar.
yeah, you don't want to turn into Augustus Gloop after all.
Yes, let's not. Let's not Augustus Gloop.
We've already explained that some things are just incorporated in my blood now, like green beans and
Barbecue sauce. And yeah, with your mom and I as your parents, probably chocolate as well.
probably chocolate.
Yeah, all about the chocolate.
Hershey's chocolate especially, like Hershey's and Twix.
Twix is okay. It's not my favorite. My favorite to this day is still Hershey's Special Dark.
I like Hershey's, Twix, and, what was that one called? I also like Dove.
Oh, wait, second favorite, because favorite is still Toblerone, but, Toblerones are amazingly tasty.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got distracted talking about chocolate. Also, another thing incorporated into my blood. Cheetos. Cheeto Pops. I can eat a whole party-sized bag, which isn't healthy, but I
You're right. It's definitely not healthy.
The first computer existed in Philadelphia in 1946. So this was a couple years after the first baseball stadium was built.
First baseball stadium, first computer, very nice.
Oh, well, now we're gonna go for
Another first.
Yeah, the first piano in America was built in Philadelphia in 1775. Which is years before the computer and the baseball stadium.
Yeah.
In fact, number 5. The Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia in 1776, which was a year after the first piano was created.
Well, the first piano created in America. They'd been created in Europe for a while before that, but that was the first American made.
Yep.
But that's still cool. And yeah, Pennsylvania has been a cradle of this country. It's part of where this country was born from.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got a history. Oh, wait. Those were some great hats.
Yeah, they were.
They weren't so long today, but you don't do research. Not talking about you, Mom.
I think you did great.
I think you did awesome.
Thank you.
So let's talk history timeline for the Eastern State Penitentiary. In 1821, the Pennsylvania legislature approves the funding to build Eastern State Penitentiary. It was designed by British architect John Haviland, who was one of 4 architects who submitted plans for the prison, and he won a $100 prize.
Wow.
Now, Haviland had settled in by choice. Anyway, the construction is overseen by rival architect William Strickland, who had also submitted a plan, but his plan was not chosen. The following year, Strickland is fired, and Haviland himself is hired to oversee the project, which to me makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
Well, okay. They bought Haviland's design, but they hired a different architect to oversee its construction, which didn't make any sense to me at all. Then they fire the different architect and hire the guy that created the design to oversee the construction. Because to me, you hire the guy that came up with the plan because he knows he knows his vision.
Sure. That makes sense.
Now, in 1826, the still unfinished penitentiary is visited by the Marquis de Lafayette, which Marquis is like a count. Yeah.
Count 1,000.
Not the Count from Sesame Street, but like a Count from the European feudal system. Now, on April 23rd, 1829, legislation is passed enforcing separate or solitary confinement at labor. Leaders at this time believed that crime was the result of environment and that solitary confinement would lead to the prisoners being rueful or penitent, thus leading to the creation of the new word, penitentiary. Cells are constructed with their own exercise yards, all designed to keep inmates from making contact with each other and minimizing contact between the guards and the inmates. Masks are created, which the inmates will be forced to wear on the few infrequent trips out of their cells to maximize the feeling of solitude. This new theory, as practiced in Eastern State Penitentiary, is dubbed the Pennsylvania System, and a lot of prisons get built based on it. October 25th, 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary opens. Its first inmate, Charles Williams, prisoner number 1, burglar, light black skin, 5 feet 7 inches tall, foot 11 inches, scar on nose, scar on thigh, broad mouth, black eyes, farmer by trade, can read. Theft included one $20 watch, one $3 gold seal, one gold key, sentenced to 2 years confinement with labor, received by Samuel R. Wood, the first warden from Eastern State Penitentiary. I want to say that I find it quite telling that the place opens and the first inmate is a black man. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about the case, but I don't like the optics of it.
Yeah.
In 1831, work is completed on Block 3. The first female inmate is received. French commissioners Gustave de Beaumont and Alexis de Tocqueville visit the prison to see the new system. By the way, any French listeners we have, if I mispronounce those names, please forgive me. I'm not an ugly American. I do care how I sound. I just don't pronounce French so well, even with 4 years of high school French under my belt. I'm 53. I've forgotten a lot. While work begins on Block 4, 5, and 6, all to hold more inmates, Block 7 is finished in 1835. In 1832, the first escape occurs. A prisoner who served as the warden's waiter lowers himself from the roof of the first building. Once recaptured, this inmate will escape using the exact same method in 1837.
I would say that probably falls under the pull me once, shame on me, shame on you, pull me twice, shame on me scenario, but what do I know?
By 1836, the prison covers 11 acres, has 450 cells, and is the model used for many other prisons. It has state-of-the-art heating and plumbing and is a technological marvel. Eastern State Penitentiary has cost $780,000 to build and is visited by many. Let me stress that. $780,000 in 1837.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money now. That was a lot of money then.
Yeah, I didn't look it up, but I would have to imagine that it would at least be.
What did you say, 780,000?
Yep, in 1837. I would guess that's at least a few hundred million in today's money, at a guess. Now, in 1842, the prison is visited by Charles Dickens, who will later write the prison is strict and severe, and that he believes the constant solitary nature of the confinement to be cruel and wrong. Charles Dickens, not a fan. Guy that wrote Scrooge and Christmas Carol didn't like the system at all. In 1854, the prison hires a full-time teacher to educate the inmates. And apparently this was the first of many that they wound up hiring. So, the inmates could learn something. But what I don't know is if they actually had classes at that point.
Okay. So, the final cost, approximately, $780,000 from 1837 in today's economy would be approximately $24 million.
Okay. That's still a lot of money for a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Now, if they hired full-time school teachers, I don't know if the school teachers educated the inmates individually or they held classes. I'm not sure. In 1877, a new cell blocks are created in the spaces between existing cell blocks. These cells do not have the attached exercise yards. In 1911, cell block 12 is completed. Vastly different than the rest of the penitentiary, there are no vaulted ceilings or skylights. Each cell instead has a narrow window. In 1913, confinement with solitude is officially abandoned at Eastern State Penitentiary, but in fact, it had actually broken down decades earlier, probably due to overcrowding, but I can't find confirmation of that. In 1923, female prisoners were moved to a new prison at Muncie, and in July of 1923, Leo Callahan and 5 accomplices escape Eastern State Penitentiary with pistols. Nobody's quite sure how they got them, but they managed to overpower guards who didn't have pistols and escape. Now, Leo himself is never recaught, but all the others are, including one who made it to Honolulu, Hawaii. Which I don't think you could manage that today. Or if you could, it would certainly be a lot different. Yeah, because not even getting on it, you can't even get on a boat without a passport or something stating your identity. In that time, I wonder if that was something they could do. That way he could just be, instead of prisoner number 2376, he's, Bill Jones or whatever name he picks for himself.
Sure.
Now, in January of 1924, the inmates eat in group dining halls. This is the first time this has happened. The tables are provided with tablecloths on Sundays and holidays, with decorations added on the holidays. This was done specifically to raise inmate morale. In August of 1924, and I kind of like this and I kind of don't, the governor allegedly sentences Pep, the cat-murdering dog, to Eastern State Penitentiary for murder of his wife's beloved cat.
Aww.
The dog is photographed and assigned an inmate number. Though the reason for his incarceration is a matter of some debate. A newspaper article at the time claims the governor sent his dog there in order to improve inmate morale. By 1926, the prison, once designed to hold 450, now holds 1,700. And the following year, Al Capone spent some months in ESP, short for Eastern State Penitentiary. His cell containing a polished desk, a lamp, several paintings, and a radio. And if you're wondering, was this common in Eastern State Penitentiary? Were these common? No, he was one of the few to have them. Did money change hands? Probably. Do I know that for sure? Nope.
There's a bunch of stuff that you don't know for sure.
There are a handful of riots and escape attempts, all of which eventually fueled the legislature to close Eastern State in 1970. It goes through a few incarnations after it's closed. At one point, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or not the Department of Motor Vehicles, but the Road Department. The department works on the road. They store stuff there.
Department of Transportation.
Yeah, they store stuff there for a while. And eventually they hire it out commercially, and like they want to make it into a museum, so to raise money, they turn it into a haunted attraction, which they still do once a year. It used to be called Terror Behind the Walls. These days, it's called something else. But yeah, and this is where people start catching. This is where the reputation of its hauntings starts to grow. So we're going to leave there for a minute and take time for a word from our sponsors. Hey, hon, how do you feel?
I feel sponsored.
Excellent.
Ooh.
So now let's talk about what happened if you were an inmate and you broke the rules. We now have the history of the prison, so let's talk about breaking the rules, because this is important, I think, to get inmates caught breaking the rules at Eastern State Penitentiary were in for some painful consequences. One of those, the iron gag, which was an iron clamp on the tongue that was also attached to the prisoner's hands, which were shackled behind the inmate.
Ow.
So, hands shackled behind you, chains from those shackles to this thing on your tongue.
Fun.
Any movement of the wrist could cause tearing, and inmates often died from hemorrhage and blood loss.
Whoa.
Another thing, inmates were also exposed to baths in ice-cold water and then hung from the walls at Eastern State Penitentiary for the rest of the night. This often led to ice forming on the skin.
Cool. Literally.
There was also what they called the mad chair, a chair that inmates were bound to with thick leather straps that often prevented any movement whatsoever. They would sit for days without food, and the complete lack of movement led many prisoners to go mad, hence the name for the chair.
Fair enough.
Sometimes the straps were secured so tightly that they restricted blood flow, causing amputations. And see, that's here's the thing for me. I don't know if it's a thing anymore, but there was
I would hope not.
There was a time in this country where being a prison guard was a pretty good job for a sadist, because you could get away with doing things like that because they're just prisoners. Nobody cares what happens to them. And so what makes a sadist happier than having an entire class of people he or she can basically abuse without consequence?
That's probably true.
Now, finally, there was the hole, an almost pit-like construct below cell block 14, where victims would be confined with little air or light. Water and a slice of bread were tossed to the inmates once each day, and the hole was home to rats and roaches as well.
Boy.
So, breaking the rules, not something I would have wanted to do at ESP. And let me say, while this was going on, America was a different place than it is now. That doesn't excuse it, that doesn't forgive it, nor does it condone it. Just understand that these things would have no place in a modern prison in America. Now, other parts of the world, this very much reflects the way things are. But in our country, at least, no.
Right.
So let's talk about hauntings. So the prisoners were initially kept in their cells for 23 hours a day, completely solitary, even wearing eyeless masks when they were out of their cells. The solitude drove many sane men mad, or so they say, which I can agree. I can see that. I couldn't imagine even even 6 months where you don't see another person, you don't talk to another person, and if you do, you are punished violently. The iron gag was kept from, because the inmates would occasionally, like through vents and stuff, would whisper to each other, for some companionship. And if they were caught doing it, the iron gag was the common punishment for that. And I just, Yeah, Krysta, the faces you're making are how I feel inside.
I would be in trouble.
Just kill me right now.
I would be in big trouble.
Good.
And to this day, masked specters are seen roaming the prison. Now, one of the biggest paranormal incidences that occurred in the Eastern State Penitentiary was to locksmith Gary Johnson. He was working to restore cell block 4 by removing a 140-year-old lock from a locked cell door. As he tried to open the cell door, he describes there being a powerful force that paralyzed him. He also stated that he felt an out-of-body moment where he was drawn towards the cell, which was bursting with negative energy and with hundreds of anguished faces and distorted forms appearing on the cell walls. There are those who believe that Johnson opened up a gateway for the ghosts and spirits who are locked in the cell. When interviewed years later, the man would still shudder in fear at the thought of the cell room in cell block 4. Now, Capone, who is arguably the prison's most well-known inmate, even though he was only there for about 8 months, he claimed he was often visited by the ghost of James Clark, one of the victims of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago. Now, Capone did not shoot or kill Clark, but he did order the massacre. So, and Clark probably would have known that, so I'm not sure if this was Capone's conscience, which I'm not even convinced he had one, but if he did, it could be his, or it could be someone who was very unhappy coming back from the dead to let Capone know how unhappy he was. Many visitors have also claimed to see the ghost of Joseph Taylor, a murderer who killed another inmate while incarcerated at Eastern State Penitentiary. Further, people have heard whispers, recorded EVPs, seen full-bodied apparitions, and shadow people. People also report feelings of being pushed, being addressed in the dark by strange voices, and actually seeing orbs, as opposed to them turning up in photos. And that's the thing. If you take a picture in a supposedly haunted location and you see an orb, great. You caught dust or you caught a bug. That's all that is. If you see one, that's a bit of a different thing. And orbs are seen there fairly regularly. Right. Now, Eastern State Penitentiary has a modern history of being investigated by just about everybody. Zach Bagans and his people have been there. The ghost hunters have been there. I want to say more than once. In fact, they might have did a live.
I think investigations there. There were a couple of years that they were going back there like every.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know they did one live investigation from there. I want to say.
One.
I believe that is where wrestler CM Punk, when he was still wrestling for WWE, joined them for a live investigation around Halloween. And Punk acclaimed himself wonderfully, like he behaved. Not like the following year when they were at a sanitarium, Waverly Hills. They were at Waverly Hills when the wrestlers they sent totally misbehaved and went running from the ghosts, which you want to upset Jason Hawes on an investigation, run away from a ghost, not towards it.
Yeah, that was.
So that really is Eastern State in a nutshell. I've said this before. I said this when we talked about the Missouri State Penitentiary in Joplin. But places like this, especially places with such a history where these people were literally for quite a while kept in a solitary condition, which would be so hard to hold on to your sanity.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a movie, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it stars Kevin Bacon, and it's about a historical happening. It's about an inmate who was kept in solitary for years. Years. Kevin Bacon played him. And they finally let him out of solitary, and he's hearing voices. He can't understand what's real and what not. He's trying to eat in the mess hall for the first time with all these people and all this noise, and he winds up killing someone. And eventually what happens is the system gets put on trial for leaving him in solitary for so long.
Right.
The only time he was ever let out was like 5 minutes on Christmas to hang out in the yard, which I can't imagine the madness that would begin to instill in someone, just to be constantly alone, constantly unable to speak or hear the voice of someone else. And I think it's one of those situations where the energy from these people probably stayed there.
Yeah.
And whatever hauntings are there now is probably fueled by these initial inmates. And I think that madness sort of becomes its own thing. Like, almost like a demon. Like it's a powerful force all of its own.
Yeah.
And I think it fuels the other hauntings. And as for this place being haunted, I know people who have been there, who've had experiences there. I have zero doubt that it's a haunted location, just based on its history. And, there's murders that happen there during riots and all sorts of stuff. And that sort of warehouse of misery will get you some hauntings. And that's sort of where I am with it. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts.
This is probably one of the first things that I ever felt like, how can anyone say that there is no such thing as the paranormal once they've seen video of an investigation of this place and places like it. So I think that of all of the things that I have watched and that I have seen things that truly make me say there's evidence just on television, just things that have been shown that I feel like are proof to me that something, even if you just want to say it's energy that's trapped in this place, and if that's all you're willing to admit, I can even go with that. Even if that's all you're willing to admit, I personally think it's a little more than that, but I have my own feelings on what happens after this life, just like lots of other people do for my own reasons. But I mean, I don't discount that at the very least there is trapped energy there from over a century worth of, almost 2 centuries worth of time that place has stood and has had so many souls pass through it. So, I mean, and that's just kind of where I'm at.
Right, yeah. It's like Gary Johnson, the guy that had that experience in Cell Block 4. And he shuddered talking about it. I don't know if he opened a portal to let the ghosts that were trapped there in, or if that was just the ruined sanity of all those that had been corrupted by their time in Eastern State.
For this one, I'm going to say that I did have a sort of correct understanding at the beginning, and I'm going to stick with that answer, but I'm also going to add a little something to it. You can say that ghosts aren't real. You can say poltergeists aren't real. You can say there's very little energy there. You can say it's all been faked on camera. But people who have gone through stuff like that, and people who have completely, like, went through, ghosts and spirits, and they've seen them, and they've experienced times with them, will be able to be like, oh, I have seen this before. This is relevant to what I have seen before, therefore I think it is real. You can say it's not true, you can say it's fake, but people who have seen stuff like that, have seen ghosts, will be there to tell you that they are real, but you don't have to believe them. Like you said at the beginning, it's kind of just like, you may not believe in them, they believe in you.
Right. And my take on it is that I guess my final take on it is that in a place where people died hanging on the walls covered in ice, people died because their tongue tore and they hemorrhaged.
Right.
For the crime of talking to another human being, merely attempting to preserve their sanity, which was against the rules because of the belief that time by themselves would make them think about their crime and get right with God or whatever it is that the whole thing was supposed to do. I think at a place where this sort of horror was regularly occurring.
Cruelty and inhumanity.
Yes. Yeah. I just think that those places become places where negative energy gets trapped. And that negative energy manifests as ghosts, as shadow people, as, it's the last chance for these souls to reach out to the living and say, hey, something happened to me. And I think in some ways that's a potent force that lasts beyond death.
I feel like the concept of ghosts being in these places like mental hospitals or jail cells, I feel like that is a very big part to the whole paranormal community. And if you don't think that ghosts are real, there will be people that will tell you that they are, and they will try to put up their best information, but they will not always get you on their side, because you can be completely blind to the fact of, hey, there are ghosts, they are real, or you can just want to ignore them and live your own life and be the best you can at the moment. I feel like ghosts subside in these places just to make sure none of what happened to them happens to anybody else.
Well, it's like old hospitals.
Right. Or they're trying to protect where they stayed during the time being. Because, as you know, some poltergeists and ghosts can be aggressive, depending on how much you know about them. It can really go south or west, and most of the time, if you leave it alone and you don't go in its territory, it should be fine. But that's just, there's this whole point in this whole paranormal community that a lot of people who say, oh, I don't believe in ghosts, I think are missing. And they can say they don't want to learn about it.
But hospitals, especially older ones, like the people who work in them tend to believe in things like miracles and ghosts because they experience, like a patient recovering when they had no reason to, or like I know one nurse that talks about being in the room with a patient that had passed and feeling like a wind almost moved from the body that actually moved stuff in the room. So I just think that the idea of places like this being haunted is a no-brainer, I guess, is my final thought. So I want to thank you all for listening. Thanks again to Bill Barrett. He's the one who does our theme music. If you need music for a project, Bill's your guy. Just reach out to him at Bill Barrett, and that last name is spelled BEHRENDT at sbcglobal.net. Sorry about that, Bill. Took a second. Also want to thank Paige Elmore from Reverie True Crime, who did our logo art, well, especially our new logo art that she did on Canva with art that Krysta did. So we have a new logo. Thank you, Krysta.
Yay.
Thank you, Paige.
Yay. I haven't gotten a chance to see that yet. That's awesome.
Also, I want to say thanks to Aaron Gnurk, who does some promotions for us locally. Also, join us next week for our episode on Civil War hauntings in Lexington, Missouri.
Ooh.
Bye.
Bye.